What's up, guys? It's Matt Wenning at WenningStrength.com, and today we're going to talk about a topic that has been pushed around in a lot of high-level talking, but you don't hear it talked about much on YouTube or in the current state of fitness, which I feel is less educational than it was even maybe 15, 20 years ago. And that is the three forms of exercises. And no, I'm not talking about max effort, I'm not talking about dynamic effort or the repetition effort method. I'm talking about something different. So let's get to it.
Lately I've been living like I can't take a loss. They ain't wanna help me, that's what made me a boss. You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. We don't give a f, that's what they don't understand. I'm back again like flu season. I broke records while loose leafing. I'm coming down my roof, leaving. Don't give a f, I don't care. Did the by my lonesome. No wonder now I'm on one. No shortcuts on that long run. All I really want is my share.
So when I talk about three forms of exercises, you know, that is a confusing topic. It doesn't necessarily ring a bell with a lot of people, but I think once we're done with this video, you'll start to understand and maybe make better selections on what you're doing and at what time you're doing it. So for instance, you need off seasons, right? It's why we created the off-season manual. It creates a different stimulus at a different time where the specificity needs to come down. I know that this is hard for you guys to understand, especially in today's day and age where everybody thinks you should squat with a straight bar every week and bench with a straight bar every week. I'm here to tell you that those people usually don't last very long and they are riddled with injuries. But without that being said, I think what we need to talk about is what are three forms of exercises? Well, one, we have general exercises, okay? These can be in the form of abs, lat pull downs, tricep push downs, anything that I would be considering an accessory exercise. These are exercises that may not directly have an effect on the actual lift of itself, but they have an indirect effect in multiple ways. One, hypertrophy, right? We need hypertrophy in certain areas. So general exercises, usually with a smart person, need to be directed into weaknesses. So what you'll find is bodybuilders just train parts to train parts. Now they might be training lagging parts aesthetically, if they're really smart. But at the end of the day, you see people that don't even know what they're talking about, and they go, well, what are you working out today? And they say, well, I'm doing bis and tris, or I'm doing chest and shoulders, or I'm doing lats and whatever. But the point is that where are your weaknesses structurally? Now, that could be an aesthetic thing, or for a lot of us, it should be a performance enhancement thing. General exercises usually need to develop weaknesses, muscle mass, and general physical preparedness. So we have a lot of general exercises in winning warm-ups. We have a lot of general exercises in accessory work. But we also rotate general exercises with the core lifts based on how specific they may be or how specific it needs to be at that time. That's where the power building manual and the hypertrophy manual kind of hybrid in from off-season to start to specifying what you actually need from your training, which is maybe squat, bench, and deadlift with the straight bar, right? So those start to kind of go that way, but they're not necessarily directed that way in a direct fashion. So we need general exercises, and where we put them at is winning warm-ups and accessories. The next form of exercise is a directed exercise. A directed exercise has very, very similar correlation with the big lifts, i.e. belt squats are very similar to regular squats. They deload the spine while they're doing it, but the movement pattern is very similar. The Good Morning machine is very similar to an RDL and has some relevance to the deadlift, right? So you guys are getting my point that directed exercises have direct transfer to a core lift, but they have enough variability that they can be rotated in and out with reduction of mileage. I find that directed exercises are very, very important to mix and match in because of the mileage quote that we're always talking about. And this mileage quote basically says, use the same thing too often, not only are you going to stagnate, you're also going to create overuse and overuse problems in these particular areas because the motor pattern is very similar. So what we do with directed exercises is kind of sneak around the back door, and what we do is we're trying to figure out how do we stimulate an actual sport-specific exercise in a more general fashion to allow us more volume. At the end of the day, out of a month or a year, if somebody is training general exercises and directed exercises in a very smart fashion by training their weaknesses, then the next step is going to be a lot easier and also a lot more beneficial. The next step or the next form of exercise is sport-specific movements. This is squatting, box squatting, deadlifting, right? It could be sumo or conventional. it has a very, very close similarity to the actual lift in which you want to perform. It doesn't mean there aren't variables, right? So we could have chains, bands, floor presses. There's still bench presses and squatting, okay, and deadlifting, but they have a little bit of variation, and so they're kind of a hybrid. A sport-specific exercise to the layman person would look very specific to sport, but to the advanced eye might have small little cue differences, right? Like, for example, this last week's, we've been doing narrow stance belt squats. That's still a squat, right? So it still has some sport-specific movements, but it's not our prime position. Or a front squat, when we may be a powerlifter, and a back squat is our main lift. It's still a sport-specific exercise. So as you can see, there's a lot of blending between general exercises, directed exercises, and sport-specific exercises. The key is where do you put these all in? Well, that's a complicated position or need a lot of time to understand. And that's also why we have done online coaching. Now, I stayed away from online coaching for a lot of years because I knew what my time was valued at. And as you can see, just based on these three different factors, how complex it really is. Because at the end of the day, some people have an entire garage full of tools, meaning bands, chains, and different kinds of bars. And other people only have a straight bar and maybe 300 pounds of plate weight with no dumbbells or kettlebells. Those workouts are going to look vastly different. It doesn't mean that variability can't be achieved. It just has to take a lot more thought process in order to do so. So I hope this helps you guys and starts to get you to understand there's so many variables in understanding how to train. And if we were to slowly put you guys from A to Z on how all this fits in and how it works, we're talking 20-year video. But what we need to do is we need to really at least show you guys the variables so that you guys can start understanding and at least making better selections on your exercises and when you do them. So please visit wenningstrength.com. Take a look at the off-season manuals, hypertrophy, power building, and powerlifting manuals if you are a powerlifter, and see that we would use these all in different types of the year in order for us to maintain and progress our strength without wearing ourselves out. Talk to you guys later.
Lately I've been living like I can't take a loss. They ain't wanna help me, that's what made me